In the Lanteria HR system, absences can be requested or registered by an employee, by the employee's manager, or by the HR or local HR. So an absence can be requested on a number of different levels by a few different people within the system. Of course, the standard path through which absences are going to be requested is by an employee. For an employee to request an absence, they should go into their employee landing page and click on My Absences. The My Absences page will take them to this page right here. And this shows a total breakdown of the individual's absence accruals and their booked absences and what remains, as well as the complete record of all absences that have been requested, either for the current year by default or for previous years as well, if we choose to expand the dates in our filter. So going up, starting up here we have the absence accruals. The absence accruals are determined by the details of the absence plan that is assigned to the individual employee. Right here we see that Mr. Burns is assigned the standard absence plan, which dictates him 20 days of annual leave based on his seniority of 9 years. We see that he's booked 8 days, that 12 days remain on his current balance, and that he's booked 1 day which is not paid, which doesn't come from this current allowance. Down here we actually see all of the records of the absences that have been requested or approved by Montgomery Burns. In order for him to register an absence, he should go into his My Absences page and choose the absence type that corresponds to what he needs to request. In the event of a vacation, which is most common, then he will come in and he will click on Register Vacation. In the Register Vacation form, Montgomery Burns will choose the start date and the return to work date of his absence. So in this case, he'll start on November the 29th and he can return on December the 1st, 2017. The start time and the return to work time is important because it dictates whether or not an individual is going to be accrued for a half day or not. So if we choose the start time as AM and the return to work time as PM, then we're going to have a half day counted against us for our recording. So as we see here, we have 2.5 days that are calculated in duration. Or if we choose AM, it will give us the number of full days that are requested. So if they're taking the afternoon off, for example, then the start time should be on the PM. Or if they're coming back in the morning or coming back in the afternoon, then it should be marked accordingly. In the event that is a non-standard vacation request, or if, for example, it's a subtype of a vacation request and shouldn't come from the standard accrual allotment, in this case of 20 days, then we should choose a vacation type. The vacation types are all specified in the absence plan details, which should be configured by the HR and the Lanteria consultant. Here, Montgomery can choose an acting person, which will send a request to that person to approve that they are now the acting person, which means that all the Lanteria responsibilities during the absence period will be forwarded on to that individual. So any kind of approval requests or HR processes or things of that nature that happen during the absence that's specified, the person that's specified as the acting person will now have the responsibility for that. We can attach a file also, or we can mark it as not paid if we wish for it to be a not paid holiday. Marking an absence as not paid will result in having a not paid booked holiday over here, and it will not subtract any days from the accrued time off over here. An HR can also request an absence on behalf of an employee or a manager by opening up that employee's card, or the employee for whom the absence is to be requested, and going over to the absence records page of that employee. By opening the absence records page of the employee, they now have access to see all of the details of requested and approved absences and their current status, as well as the ability to request additional absences for that employee. An HR and a manager will have additional absence absence types that they can choose from in requesting time off. Business trip requests and extra time off requests, for example, are not something that is not something that an employee has the authority to request, but the HR and the manager do. However, we can select any type that's required for our individual. Likewise, We can also just register an absence at any time for a given employee by registering a vacation request, or a sickness, a business trip, or other absence, which opens up a generic absence request form directly from the quick links that we can fill in with the required employee details as necessary. In such a way, now the employee is not limited to being in the office in order to request their vacation time, but in fact an HR can do it on their behalf. This is especially useful in times where there's a long-term or a serious illness that needs to be documented, and the employee doesn't have the ability to come into the office and request, or doesn't have access to the system in that case. A manager can also access the absence details of his or her team by going to the manager landing page. Team attendance area, he can go to the absences page to get an overview or a quick report of all of his team members and what their current absence requests or approved absence records look like. From the My Team Absences page, he can then register an absence of any kind for any of his team members, or he can approve or reject absence requests that are currently pending for which he's responsible. Likewise, he can view the absence schedule here to get an overview of who's going to be out on his team and when. Once opening the absence form to request the absence, we find that for the individual, the absence form is the same regardless of who's accessing it, with the exception that the employee field is not necessarily editable. For an HR role, which is Montgomery Burns and the current user that I'm in, the employee role is editable. However, for an employee requesting, they won't be able to change it from their own name, and likewise, the manager will be limited only to the members of his or her team. And that concludes this presentation on the Lanteria Absences module and how to request absences. Thanks for watching.